Hey everybody, HomeSliceHenry here, and in today's video we're taking a look at the massive update to Tapu Bulu. It finally has access to its legacy charge attack of Nature's Madness. Previously, for fairy damage, Tapu Bulu was stuck with Dazzling Gleam, which is far too expensive. Having one shielded really puts you in a difficult spot. But Nature's Madness is much cheaper, and it comes with a guaranteed defense drop. This is a massive buff to Tapu Bulu, and considering the Grass Fairy typing is just about the perfect thing to core break the current Origin Form plus Landorus meta, I'm incredibly excited to try it out. So without further ado, let's hop into the matches, and let's test it out in some practice battles in the Open Master League. In the first match, we pick up a tough lead Kyogre into Dialga. I save switch into my own, and my opponent is going to respond with Landorus. So far, my opponent is extremely weak to Tapu Bulu, as the Dialga actually now loses the 2 shield to Tapu Bulu, because Tapu Bulu makes 4 Nature's Madness before 3 Iron Heads are reached. So in the 2 shield as the Tapu Bulu, the Dialga doesn't even get to land a charge attack. Since I am using the Dialga Origin form, I'm able to grab a shield from the Landorus counter swap. So now I have Tapu Bulu in an endgame where it's going to be up a shield. I send in the Tapu Bulu, they're staying in with the Dialga, so now we get to see this matchup play out. I go for the Nature's Madness, that does some solid damage, but the important thing is the defense drop. With the defense drop, my next Nature's Madness is just about going to KO, and I'm able to outpace the Dialga. So I can even overfarm by a little bit here, fire off the Nature's Madness. The Nature's Madness is going to be shielded, so it seems like they are weak in the back. It could very well be, as I mentioned at the start, we've seen a lot of teams that have both Origin forms, Dialga and Palkia and Landorus, and there it is right on cue, the Palkia Origin in the back. And Palkia Origin just gets absolutely obliterated by Tapu Bulu. Tapu Bulu is not bulky. It's very frail, as we see the Aqua Tail does quite a lot of damage, but I have a guaranteed win con in this game, where because of the debuff, I can waterfall down even though it's double resisted, and make the Blizzard. I have a move loaded on the Tapu Bulu, but I'm not going to need it, as I'm able to take game number 1. That's one thing as well that I really love about the Tapu Bulu, its ability to be a setup mon by debuffing something, and then you can switch in something that may not necessarily have a great matchup, but when your opponent's defense has been debuffed, that matchup can get a lot better. We saw a terrible lead in the next match, Kyogre into Palkia, but the Dialga save switch lures out Ho-Oh, which is actually perfect. I'm able to grab a shield with my Roar of Time, and baiting out Ho is exactly the thought process behind the Dialga safe switch, as ideally, I want to try and get any potential fire type or steel type not named Dialga out of the way, as those are 2 typings that Tapu Bulu definitely does struggle against. Back in comes the Palkia, I'm sending in the Bulu, and in the back, it's a Landorus, and this is the core that Tapu Bulu targets. If you've played any Master League, you know this core is on like 50% of teams. You completely destroy Palkia. The Landorus matchup is very bait dependent. I have 2 shields, so I call the bait. They land the Stone Edge, and that does a ton of damage. However, they can never farm me down. Mudshot does basically no damage here. So even though I'm going to be forced to shield Sandsear Storms, I should still be in a pretty okay position. I am going to have to shield Sandsears and get very, very debuffed, but my clock will be up soon. So I'm going to be able to fire off the Nature's Madness. That is going to pick up the KO. In comes the Palkia. I'm debuffed, but I can just bank the move, send in Kyogre, fire off the double resisted Surf. The Surf, I mean, it's not going to do a lot of damage, but at this point, all damage helps to just get it into Nature's Madness range, and the Tapu Bulu in this endgame, Nature's Madness takes down the Palkia, and we take the win. Great lead in the next match, Kyogre into Landorus, the save switch into Dialga, and I'm going to mirror with my own. This is my best response to a Dialga save switch, is just bringing my own. My opponent doesn't build up to the Roar of Time. They just want to land the Iron Head so that way they can potentially guarantee switch advantage. I build up to the Roar of Time and I decide to bait back, expecting a shield, but my opponent ends up no shielding. Oh, that is a bit unfortunate. I should be able to shield here and just take switch advantage because I did land a waterfall before switching out. So I'm able to leave with the Iron Head. I think I can make the Roar versus the Landorus. Oh, I cannot. I get KO'd as soon as I make it. That's a bit unfortunate in the back. It's Zekrom, and now I can send in Tapu Bulu. Tapu Bulu, I mean, one Nature's Madness will not KO here, but it'll do a ton of damage. My opponent ends up shielding the first, and now that they've shielded the first, any future Nature's Madnesses will come very close to just one-shotting at this range. Their energy is completely walled, so I can pretty safely no-shield the Fusion Bolt, as they're typically running Fusion Bolt and Crunch, or my preferred moveset, Fusion Bolt and Outrage. They're now double debuffed. I can shield here because I know the next Nature's Madness is going to KO, and their Switch Clock, while it may be close to up, it's not quite up yet. Opponent unable to save the Zekrom. Zekrom gets fully KO'd. Back in comes Kyogre, and Kyogre will be able to make quick work of the Landorus here, as Surf is going to pick up the KO. Hopping into the next match, leading Kyogre into Solgaleo. Very positive lead. Opponent save switches into Lugia. I'm going to stay in with the Kyogre and go for the Surf. Throwing a Surf here is going to deny my opponent a full sneak because they were one turn behind due to the one turn swap, and landing that Surf means that barring an Aeroblast boost, I can guaranteed keep switch advantage against the Lugia safe swap. So Lugia is going to full send the Aeroblast, and they do not get the boost, which is quite nice for me. I can farm up and go for the Iron Head just before they're able to make it to their Sky Attack. Iron Head will come very close to knocking out. Opponent commits the shield. They're going to try and make a play for Switch, but with the Surf and Dip Tech, as we're going to see here, I'm actually going to be able to get a full farm down, and I leave with a Roar of Time loaded, which is extremely nice. I mean, they're probably just going to send in the Solgaleo to absorb the damage, but it's still, it's still the damage of a Draco Meteor, so it's going to be doing quite a lot of resisted damage. In comes Kyogre. Kyogre looking to make it to the Surf. Nice catch by the opponent, but it's onto a Zygarde. Oh, hey, you know what else is kind of annoying in the Master League and gets completely walled by Tapu Bulu? It's Zygarde. I can just rebank my energy, send in the Tapu Bulu. Zygarde is very bulky, so Nature's Madness is not going to do a lot of damage here, but the best thing about this matchup is going to be actually Tapu Bulu's defensive typing. The Grass and Fairy is going to be resisting Zygarde's entire moveset, as Crunch, Earthquake, Dragon Tail, they're not going to be able to do much of anything here. They're going to go for the Crunch as they're looking to stall the Switch Timer here. I continue to farm. Switch Clock's up. In comes Solgaleo. They have enough for the Iron Head, so I will respect it. They're one off a second Psychic Fang, so I will go for a Nature's Madness. In hindsight, I maybe should have gone for a Grass Knot because a Grass Knot would have KO'd. A Grass Knot does slightly more damage neutrally, but in case they shielded, I did want the debuff. Now in comes the Zygarde. Kyogre is going to take that farm down. My opponent played that very well, but the alignment was just very, very favorable for me. Picking up a pretty decent lead in the next match, Kyogre versus Mewtwo. It's very nice to see this here because Mewtwo is a profoundly negative matchup for Tapu Bulu. Tapu Bulu just gets outpaced there. I'm going to farm up one, wait to make sure my opponent doesn't get the catch. They send in Zarude. Unfortunately, I was very slow on the counter swap, but even so, this is a very good matchup for Tapu Bulu. My opponent is going to have to give up a lot of shields if they want to potentially flip this. I can fire off the Nature's Madness. That's going to do massive damage to the Zarude. They're firing off another charge attack. I have another Nature's Madness here, so I can just throw it right away, but I love to be able to double up. So I go for the double up, but I miscounted. And that's going to force me to go down a shield. Oh, that is definitely not ideal there. The miscount, that hurts, because now I am down a shield. The good news is I leave with a Nature's Madness. So if they bring in something that isn't like a Steel type or a Fire, this is going to do a lot of damage. They bring in a Mewtwo. This is going to do a lot to the Mewtwo. Mewtwo is going to shield, so I get the shield back. They leave with a Psy Strike, and they do win Charge Attack priority over the Kyogre. So I can't bring in Kyogre. I'm going to bring in Dialga, farm up, and then actually snipe with the Surf. This way, I guaranteed get the Surf damage off. They're debuffed, they're forced to shield, and now I can just let Kyogre go. Kyogre did its job. I have Dialga up energy with a 1-0 shield advantage, so I basically beat anything in the format. They're going to go for a Shadow Ball. I decide at the last second to shield here because I don't know what they have in the back, and it's Landorus. I have a pretty big energy lead, so this is just strictly a win for me. Dialga does win the zeros anyway, but now the fact that I have extra energy is going to help even more because I may be debuffed, but it's still a Roar of Time. That's going to be knocking out the Landorus. In comes the Mewtwo. Mewtwo trying to make it to a charge attack, but it cannot get there, and we take the win. Tough lead in the next match, leading Kyogre into Palkia. Opponent is going to stay in for quite some time with the Palkia, looking to get some chip damage onto the Dialga before they send in Landorus. The Iron Head is going to be shielded. They're farming up a ton of energy with the Landorus, and Landorus will fire off the Sandsear Storm. I'm just not going to be shielding in this matchup. My opponent, on 1 HP, they're looking for the farm down, but I make it to the Iron Head that connects the Dragon Breath snipes, and I'm able to win Switch. So a bit unfortunate for my opponent there. I now have the alignment that I need where I have the Tapu Bulu on the Palkia. Palkia, I can tank a Spatial Rend, so I'm going to no shield. They actually have Draco Meteor. They don't have the Legacy move. In the back, it's Dialga. And Dialga, watch this setup potential here by Bulu. I'm able to grab a shield with Nature's Madness. I bank it for later. They're debuffed, and look at the waterfalls add up on Dialga Origin. Dialga Origin is a pretty bulky Pokemon, but once you lower its defense, like, this is the setup potential that I was talking about. Like, it just feels fantastic to play, to be honest. It felt terrific. I really had my doubts after seeing the Sims, but oh my goodness, it felt incredible to get to play this Pokemon. And I have the Nature's Madness stored on the Tapu Bulu. Palkia Origin, get out of here. We take the win with both shields remaining. Moving to the next match, leading Kyogre into another Mewtwo lead. Again, this team is double strong to Mewtwo. Both Kyogre and Dialga do quite well there. As long as I can keep Mewtwo off the Tapu Bulu, I should be in a pretty okay spot. My opponent this time does not go for the catch. The last Mewtwo lead tried to go for a catch there, but I watch for it. They don't get the catch and I'm able to land the Surf. I try for a Psy Strike catch, waiting the turn, but it's not to be. They mirror with their own Dialga. I'm just going to go straight for the Roar of Time, because Roar of Time, of course, doesn't come with any attack drops. The Roar of Time connects. Opponent tries to call the bait. In comes the Mewtwo. It's unable to make the Focus Blast, and in the back, it's Kyogre. So honestly, even if they ended up shielding that move, two shielded Tapu Bulu was probably just winning this game, because Tapu Bulu against a Dialga Kyogre core can do very, very well. And that's the thing. The Dialga plus Kyogre core, which I myself am running here, it's very, very difficult to break that core. It's one of the reasons why I really like running the Master League Virizion. Although Master League Virizion doesn't really have the stats or the combat power to compete in the Open Masters, just by virtue of the fact that it's one of the only mons that can actually have play into both sides of that core. People can have success with it, but this is something else where being able to beat Kyogre in all evens, and as well being able to beat Dialga Origin in the twos, does give Tapu Bulu with Nature's Madness a very cool niche. You see a tough lead, Kyogre into Palkia. This lead is just absolutely everywhere. They're farming up some energy. I'm going to no shield. It is going to be the Aqua Tail. They bring in their own Dialga, and I'm going to go for an Iron Head bait, because I think if I Iron Head bait, I can make the Roar of Time on like 1 HP. It's going to be very, very close, though. We're going to have to see. They're firing off their energy. Oh, man, this is a tough call, but I really want Switch, so I'm going to shield. I'm going for it. Come on, Dialga. And I don't get there. No. Oh, man. Maybe if my best buddy was finished and I had a little bit of extra HP, I could have gotten there. But unfortunately, I do not get there. And they're going to be firing off the Roar of Time. Goodbye, Kyogre. And I need Tapu Bulu to 1v3 here. And my guess is, if they're this weak, unless they have something like Landorus, I'm probably not going to be able to 1v3. Let's see. What do they have back there? Oh, it's Metagross. Yeah, no, this is over. If these weren't practice battles with members of my Discord, I would just resign at this point. But it's a practice battle, so we may as well play it out. And they're just going to be able to get a big farm down here. The one nice thing is, even in its worst matchups, at the very least, you are still debuffing. So, like, I have nothing to hit a Steel type. But I'm still able to get that Metagross pretty low. So it's still a terrible matchup, but at the very least, the terrible matchups are slightly less worse. We pick up a great lead in the final match, leading Kyogre into Landorus. Opponent save switches into their own Dialga, so I'm going to mirror with mine. I commit the shield, they bait with the Iron Head, and I'm actually going to full send the Roar of Time here. An Iron Head won't KO and will allow them, if they no-shield it, to make it to a Roar. So I'm going to go for the Roar to guarantee the shield, and now I'm more than happy to just go down a shield and fully farm down. So I will commit the shield. They go for the Iron Head. My opponent, it's going to be close here. Can they get there? They cannot. They're unable to get there, and I exit with a Roar of Time, which is going to do a massive amount of damage to the Landorus. Oh, I didn't quite have it, but thankfully, I can withstand the mud shots and get there, and I grab the shield from the opponent. I can send back in Kyogre, and in the back, oh, trainer, I'm so sorry. In the back, we have the Tapu Bulu for the Palkia Origin. Palkia basically was running around unchecked. Like, the Palkia, Dialga Origin, and Landorus, like, that trio was so incredibly strong. So to have a new Mon that, even though it's a little frail, has incredible play into all three of those is amazing. And as you do see from the frailty, I'm deep into the red, but I get the farm down after landing the Nature's Madness, which is beautiful. We leave with another Nature's Madness. That does half of the health of the Landorus. Landorus is forced to go for the Sandsear Storm to finally KO the Bulu. I can send back in Kyogre, and this Surf is just going to be able to take the win. Overall, as I mentioned, to be honest, I was a little pessimistic. The Sims do not look good for this Pokemon, but trying it out, I was extremely impressed. And that's one of the reasons why sometimes it's worth waiting to actually get the test out on to see how it does. Its setup ability is terrific. The ability to lower an opponent's defense, like even in that Dialga matchup where Dialga versus Kyogre, not fun for Kyogre, but if the Dialga's defense is lowered, all of a sudden the resisted damage is not looking too resisted. And its ability to have play as the Grass Fairy type, it has tremendous play into the most common mons that we're going to be seeing. Like that Palkia plus Landorus core, which basically doesn't have any checks. This is probably the closest to a check, a realistic check anyway, that core now has. Is granted, the Landorus matchup is a bit uncomfortable with baits, but as we saw, even if they land the Stone Edge, they're unable to ever mudshot you down. It also has play into Dialga and Dialga Origin, being able to win the 2s straight Nature's Madness, which is incredibly nice. And on top of that, its ability to completely shut down Zygarde, which as we know is completely overrunning High Elo Master League. All in all, I'm giving this a way more positive review than I ever thought. I think this thing is going to see a lot of play in High Elo Master League because it just shuts down a lot of what people have been running. We see so many teams that are like ABA Origins with Lando, an Origin, a Lando, a Dialga. We see the Origin, the Landorus, and the Zygarde is what I meant to say. Kyogre plus Dialga core. So many of these top meta cores, they really don't want to see Tapu Bulu. So to be honest, I think we're going to be seeing a lot more Tapu Bulu than we expected. It's a very frail Pokemon. It's going to play very similarly to how Tapu Koko does in the Open Ultra League. So if you like that kind of play style of a glassy mon that can hide behind shields, but really just absolutely wear down opponents' HP bars over time by continually debuffing, switching out, catching moves, saving it for later, I think this mon is going to have a massive impact on the Open Master League. At least I hope it will, because defensively, its typing is perfect for the Core Breaker this meta needs, and Nature's Madness is an incredibly cracked move. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. If you're enjoying the content, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. And a special thank you as always to our members here on YouTube. The support you guys provide is sincerely appreciated. So thank you guys oh so very much. And until next time, I've been HomeSliceHenry.